All right, guys, let me know when you can see my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen, inshallah ta'ala. Bring up the chat box. I can still see. I can see, all right. And let me just make it nice and big. Guys, is that too big or is that okay? Let me know, inshallah. It's okay, excellent. Has it still maintained its clarity, Sister Aisha? It's fine, yep, great. Okay, Jade. All right, guys. Now, in this lesson, inshallah ta'ala, we are going to be covering al-fa'ilu wal-maf'ulu bihi, the subject of a verbal sentence and also the object. Now, I'm pretty sure that, especially, I mean, I've mentioned these things if you studied Madinah Book 1 with me, definitely. And I'm sure we've come across things like the fa'il and what the maf'ul bihi is. To be honest, I teach Arabic so often to so many different groups of people, I forget, sometimes what I actually covered with each group. So I do apologize in advance. In any case, this is what we're going to be covering today. And the document that we're going to go through, everything's in Arabic. So I'm going to slowly but surely try to wean ourselves off relying on the English translation. And I want you to start to understand things in Arabic. No problem if you want to write English notes in your own time. That's absolutely fine. 1 second, guys, just going to admit somebody into the group. Yeah, no problem if you want to, make your own notes in English. But as it relates to the things that we're going to cover, for the most part now, we're going to try and wean ourselves off of the English translation, and we're going to stick to the Arabic as much as possible, بإذن الله تعالى. إخواني وأخواتي في الله, هل تفهمونني وتفهمونني؟ أي نعم. Excellent, Abdullah. Aisha, good. Rayhana, and also Farwa. Assalamu alaikum, Farwa. All right, let's begin. So we know from Madinah Book 1, for those of you that studied with me, that al-jumlatu tanqasimu ila qismayn. Al-jumlatu tanqasimu ila qismayn. That a sentence or the sentence in Arabic is split into two categories. There are only two types of sentences in Arabic. The first one, and this is probably the most, definitely the most common type of sentence in Madinah Book 1, and that is al-jumlatul ismiyatu. And that is a nominal sentence. What is a nominal sentence, ikhwani wa akhawati fillah? Hiya allati awwaluha ismun. It is the sentence that the beginning, awwaluha, again, the beginning of the sentence, ismun, is a noun. وَتَتَكَوَّنُ مِنَ الْمُبْتَدَأِ وَالْخَبَرِ. And this sentence, not only does it begin with a noun, but it is made up of, or it is comprised of a subject and a predicate. Now, I want to make an important announcement here. When we speak about the mubtada, all right, guys, when we speak about the mubtada, it's often translated as the subject. And sometimes when we speak about the fa'il, again, it's also translated as the subject. My question to you guys is, ما هو الفرق بين الفاعل والمبتدأ؟ ما هو الفرق بينهما؟ من يعرف الجواب؟ من يعرف الجواب؟ ما الفرق بين الفاعل وبين المبتدأ? If you don't know, then say you don't know, because that would allow me to understand who understands and who doesn't understand. And I don't mind if you don't understand, because that means there's room for me to teach. Doesn't the fa'il come later on in the sentence? That's my guess. Okay, interesting. Sister Farwa, Rayhana, Aisha, ماذا تقولون? What do you guys say? Sheikh Abdullah, can you think of anything else that could potentially be different? So Rehana says the fa'il is the doer of the action. Correct. لكن ما الفرق بينهما? What's the difference between the two? Sister Farwa, you there? Sister Aisha, you there? Five more seconds, guys. Remember, if you don't know, please type in the comments thread that you don't know. It would actually help me. All right. Abdullah says, I haven't really covered verbal sentences. Aisha says, I was going to say that the fa'il is always in the state of rafa', but so is the mubtada, right? Excellent. The mubtada is always in the fi mahalli rafa'. Mubtada is at the beginning of a sentence. Sorry, don't know. No problem. Excellent. The fact that you guys don't know, and I'm really happy that you feel comfortable and confident to say that, and even the ones that the people that have actually tried to answer these questions, is great for me because it now shows me that there's something I can add some value in this particular bab. The first thing I want you to know, the fa'il is unique, right, guys? The fa'il is unique to verbs. All right, the fa'il is unique to verbs, whilst the mubtada is unique to nouns or nominal sentences. All right, the fa'il is unique to verbal sentences and verbs, whilst the subject is unique to nominal sentences. So you will not have a nominal sentence, right? You will not say call the mubtada al-fa'il because it's the subject of the nominal sentence. You would always call the subject of a nominal sentence the mubtada. And similarly, the subject of a verbal sentence, i.e. the one that is carrying out the action of the fi'l, will always be the fa'il and not be referred to as al-mubtada. Does that make sense, guys? Please let me know, inshaAllah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. And as you can see here, it's kind of like, it's quite clear here. It says, Al-jumlatul ismiyatu, the nominal sentence, hiya allati awwaluha ismun. It is the sentence which the beginning of it, awwaluha, is a noun. وَتَتَكَوَّنُ, and it is comprised of or made up of min al-mubtada wal-khabar, of a mubtada and also a khabar. It didn't say وَتَتَكَوَّنُ مِنَ الْفِعْلِ or مِنَ الْفَاعِلِ وَالْخَبَرِ. It didn't say that. All right, guys? And then nahu, yani for example, Muhammadun mujtahidun. Muhammadun mujtahidun. What is the beginning of this sentence made up of? It's made up of a noun, Muhammadun. But what is the sentence Muhammadun mujtahidun made up of? It's made up of a mubtada and it's made up of a khabar. Guys, please let me know in the comments thread. Are you understanding me so far? Excellent, excellent. Then he goes on to say, هذه جملة اسمية. Sorry, that should be لأن أولها اسم وهي جملة مفيدة. It says that this is a nominal sentence, meaning the example that I just gave. Why is it an example of a nominal sentence? لأن أولها, we say أول, not أولو, أولها, sorry. We say أولها because لأن أولها اسم, because the beginning of this sentence is a noun. وهي جملة مفيدة, and this sentence is also a beneficial sentence. All right, a sentence or kalam has to be mufid. The sentence has to be mufida, yani beneficial, in order for it to be called a sentence. All right, you couldn't just say, for example, Muhammadun, and expect that to be considered as a sentence in Arabic. It's not. Why? Because it's not mufid. What about Muhammad? All right, who is Muhammad? J. Moving on swiftly. Then it says, وَالْخَبَرُ ثَلَاثَةُ أَنْوَاعٍ. وَالْخَبَرُ ثَلَاثَةُ أَنْوَاعٍ. The khabar of a nominal sentence is of three types. All right, the khabar مفيد لا. مفيد means beneficial أخي. مثلا you can say الكتاب مفيد. Alright, الكتاب مفيد, the book is beneficial. Or you could say الدرس كان مفيدا, يعني the lesson was beneficial. So when we're speaking about the jumla, because the jumla is feminine with the ta al-marbuta at the end, we have to use the feminine version of the adjective. Alright, وهي جملة مفيدة بمعنى, and it is a beneficial sentence, meaning that we get some type of meaning, some benefit from the mubtada and the khabar. All right, the mubtada and the khabar. Hope that's clear, guys. So now we've dealt with the mubtada. All right, we've dealt with the mubtada. Barakallahu feekum. Now let's move on to the khabar. يقول والخبر ثلاثة أنواع. That the khabar is of ثلاثة أنواع, 3 types. Or you could say 3 types. I like 3 types. All right, 3 types. The first way that the khabar can present itself, this is what we're speaking about. How does the khabar present itself in a sentence? The first way is ismun mufradun, is if the khabar consists of only one word. This is one of the most, basic, and especially Madinah Book 1, the most common ways that the khabar presents itself as one word. For example, Bilalun. Let me put in nice color so you guys can see it. Bilalun talibun. Bilalun talibun, which means Bilal is a student. The mubtada here is Bilalun. The mubtada here, guys, is Bilalun. The khabar is talibun. And this is the word that we're focusing on. Why? We're focusing on this word because we're looking at the different ways. Sorry, guys. Cancel. We're focusing on the different ways the khabar can present itself. And as you clearly can see here, the khabar is one word. Ismun mufradun. Does that make sense, guys? All right. And this is like, for example, the equivalent of هذا بيت, هذه بنت. All of these types of sentences, الولد جالس, الإمام واقف. All of these types of sentences that we covered in Madinah Book 1, and you've probably covered in your own independent studies. Simple. Sentence begins with an ism and it ends with a khabar. All right? It's very simple. Anyway, moving on now. The second way that a khabar can potentially present itself is if the khabar is actually a jumla, a sentence in and of itself. All right? وَالْجُمْلَةُ إِمَّا فِعْلِيَّةٌ وَإِمَّا إِسْمِيَّةٌ. This sentence that we're speaking about is either going to be a verbal sentence or it's going to be a nominal sentence, guys. All right? It's either going to be a verbal sentence or it's either going to be a nominal sentence. No matter which one it is, whether it's a verbal or a nominal sentence, it is in the position, or it's going to occupy the position of the khabar. All right, guys? For example, if we cast your eyes down here, it says, Bilalun kharaja. What does that mean, guys? How would you translate that? Bilalun kharaja. How would you translate that? Anybody? Bilal went out. Bilal left. Excellent. So we know that this is definitely a nominal sentence. Why? لأن أولها or لأن أولها اسم. Right? Begins with a noun. Now the khabar is جملة فعلية. The khabar is actually a verbal sentence. Why do we say that this is a verbal sentence? Because the ضمير هو is hidden inside. تقديره هو, we say خرج فعل ماض مبني على الفتح. The verb خرج is a past tense verb مبني على الفتح والفاعل ضمير مستتر تقديره هو. And we've covered this before. The pronoun huwa is hidden inside the verb. All right. However, when we translate this into English, we don't say Bilal, he left. We just simply say, as you guys clearly wrote, Bilal left, or Bilal went out. Or you could say Bilal exited. Let me know if that makes sense, inshallah ta'ala. What I want you to focus on is the whole concept that the khabar is a verbal sentence. All right, guys? Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes, Rehana says she understands, makes sense. Excellent. Guys, I'm just going to make a little bit of space between these so you guys can see a bit more. Okay, there we go. That's much better. All right. So now the third example I'm going to give, but it still comes under the second type of way a khabar can present itself, right? Is if the khabar is in fact a jumla ismiya itself. So it starts, it's a jumla ismiya in its totality. Why? Because it begins with a noun. Now the khabar in and of itself is a nominal sentence. All right, the khabar in and of itself is a nominal sentence. So here we have the word of the sentence, Bilalun khattuhu jamilun. Bilalun khattuhu jamilun. How would you guys translate this sentence? For those of you who don't know, the word khat means handwriting. Excellent. Bilal's handwriting is beautiful. That's exactly how I would translate it. You don't have to say, or you wouldn't say, Bilal, his handwriting is beautiful, because this this dhamir goes back to Bilal, right? It goes back to Bilal. A literal translation would be Bilal, his handwriting is beautiful. But as Abdullah clearly wrote, we just simply say Bilal's handwriting is beautiful. Anyway, the khabar of the sentence is a nominal sentence. His handwriting is beautiful. That is a sentence in English and in Arabic. Khattuhu jamilun. His handwriting is beautiful. Guys, please let me know if that makes sense, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Now, guys, we're going to move on to, and guys, feel free that if you have any questions, just fire at random, please. Just fire at random. Don't feel shy to say you guys don't understand or anything. Anyway, the third and final way that the khabar can present itself is if it's a shibhu jumlatin. Shibhu jumlatin. Now, a shibhu jumla, ikhwani wa akhwati fillah, is a phrase. Shibhu jumla is a phrase. And the phrase is either going to be comprised of a preposition and a noun, jar or majroor, or it's going to comprise of an adverb and a noun, all right, with a dharf al-makan or dharf al-zaman, all right, which we've covered in Madinah book 1. So let's check this out now. It says shibhu jumlatin, which is a phrase, all right? A phrase is a group of words that come together that don't give you a full beneficial meaning in and of themselves. They are in need of a mubtada in order for that meaning to be complete. And I'll give you an example in a minute. It says, وَشِبُهُ جُمْلَةٍ, and a phrase, إِمَّا يَكُونَ جَارًا وَمَجْرُورًا. It's either going to be jar or majroor. Now, when we say jar or majroor, guys, we're speaking about the preposition, the harfu jar, and then the ism that has now become majroor due to the harfu jar. But when we want to be concise, we simply suffice and say jar wa majroor, which means harfu jar and the ism, which is majroor. So again, one more time. A phrase, shibhu jumla. It says shibhu jumlatin, a phrase, imma an yakun. It is either going to be jar or majroor. Yani, it's either going to be made up of a preposition, then a noun, or imma dharfan, dharfu makanin, wa dharfu zaman. Or it's going to be comprised of an adverb, all right, an adverb, and then the noun that follows it. So let's take a look at the first example. Here we can see Bilalun fil fasli. Bilalun fil fasli. We all know that the word fil fasli means in the classroom. This is what I was speaking about when I said a phrase is a group of words, here, 2 words, that when they come together, they don't give us a beneficial meaning in and of themselves. Because if somebody were to say to you, fil fasli, without any context, without being asked a question or anything, they just went up to you and said, Assalamu alaikum, fil fasli. What would you guys say? What's the first thing you guys would say to somebody that walked up to you and said, fil fasli? Excellent. من في الفصل ماذا في الفصل. من في الفصل, who is in the classroom. ماذا في الفصل, what is in the classroom. Now the moment somebody says بلال في الفصل, now they've given you a full sentence. Why? Because now that sentence is beneficial. Why is it beneficial? Because it was in need of a mubtada beforehand. It was in need of this mubtada. The moment you come with the mubtada, now the sentence is complete. So anyway, fil fasli is our jar wa majroor. Fi is our jar, which is the preposition, and fil fasli is the ism that is majroor. Please let me know, guys, in the comments thread, because you guys have been a bit quiet, but it's all good. Let me know if that makes sense, please. Jazitum khaira. And the next example is if it's a dharfu makan. Abdullah, okay, I was about to say, it looks like Abdullah is the only one that's replying. Alhamdulillah. The next example under this third type is a dharfu makan. Sorry, guys. Which is an adverb of place. An adverb of place. Or it could be, sometimes you can have an adverb of time, as you can have an adverb of place here, and you can also have an adverb of time, as I alluded to before. Anyway, so let's check out this example. It says Bilalun khalfa Muhammadin. Translate this sentence, guys. What does Bilalun khalfa Muhammadin mean? Bearing in mind the word khalfa is an adverb of place. What does it mean? Bilalun khalfa Muhammad. Excellent. Bilal is behind Muhammad. That's exactly what it means. All right. But again, this word khalfa is an adverb. Sorry, guys. It works similar to a preposition in the sense that it makes the word that follows it to become majroor. All right. But we refer to it as an adverb and not a preposition. In any case, the khabar here is shibhu jumla. It is comprised of a dharf and an ism. All right, guys. Moving on swiftly. Then it says وَالْجُمْلَةُ الْفِعْلِيَّةُ, and the verbal sentence. هِيَ الَّتِي أَوَّلُهَا فِعْل. It is the sentence whereby at the beginning of the sentence, it begins with a verb. وَتَتَكَوَّنُ مِنَ الْفِعْلِ وَالْفَاعِلِ, and it is made up or comprised of a verb and the subject of the verb. Or we can simply say the doer of the verb. This is what a verbal sentence is made up of. Then it says, أو الفعل ونائب الفعل. Or it could be that you have the fi'l and then you have what we call the na'ib of the fi'l, a representative of the fi'l. But I'm not going to get into that today because that's inshallah ta'ala going to come in a later book. I forgot, but does every adverb make the noun that follows it? Yes, it does, akhi. Yes, they do, inshallah ta'ala. All right, guys. So don't worry too much about where it says al-fi'l wa na'ib al-fi'l, because we're going to cover that in due course. But just know that it's already been mentioned here for reference. Anyway, so we're looking at a verbal sentence. Why? Because so how do we identify as a verbal sentence? We identify it because the beginning of the sentence is a verb and it must comprise of a fi'l and a fa'il. So when we look at this sentence here, the sentence says قرأ الطالب القرآن. Remember, guys, what are we speaking about? We're speaking about verbal sentences. قرأ الطالب القرآن, which means the student read the Quran. I am so sorry, guys. I keep yawning. You never really see me yawn in a lesson. It's just been a tremendously long day. قرأ الطالب القرآن, which means the student read the Quran. Moving on. When we break down the i'rab, when we break down this sentence, yani grammatically, what do we say? We say قرأ is a fi'l ماضٍ, is a past tense verb. مبني على الفتح. It is fixed on a fatha. That's the only vowel sound you're going to see at the end of the verb قرأ. All right. Then the word الطالب, this is our fa'il, our doer of the verb, and it is also marfu'. It is in the state, the position, guys, of rafa'. وَعَلَامَةُ رَفْعِهِ, and the sign of it being as such, الضمة الظاهرة على آخره, is the clear dhamma at the end of the word, as you guys can see here, crystal clear. That's the sign that this is the doer, the fa'il of the jumla. And then we have the word al-Qur'an. Pay attention, guys. Al-Qur'an. Why? Because it is the object of the sentence. We say maf'ulun bihi mansub. It is the object and it is in the state of nasb. وَعَلَامَةَ نَصْبِهِ وَعَلَامَةُ نَصْبِهِ, and the sign of it being in the state of nasb, al-fathatu dhahiratu ala akhirih, is the clear fatha at the end of the word. Guys, let me know if you are you following me so far, because we haven't got that much to go, but I don't want to just zoom through this this material that I've prepared for you if there is anything, if somebody hasn't understood something. So Faro understood. Quick question. Bismillah akhi. Is'al. I'm going to keep reading, but I will check the comments thread and I'll stop once the question comes through. All right. It says tanbih, yani note. Al-fa'ilu marfu'un da'iman. The fa'il, the doer of the verb, will always be in a state of rafa' all the time. All right, all the time. وَالْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ mansub da'iman. And the maf'ul will always be in a state of nasb. These are like rules or principles in the Arabic language. Isn't the fi'l also marfu'? La. We don't refer to the fi'l as being marfu' akhi, ever. It's the fa'il that's going to be in a state of rafa'. The fi'l, not the fa'il. The fi'l will not be. وَالْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ مَنْسُوبٌ دَائِمًا. The maf'ul bihi, the object, will always be in the position of nasb. Then it goes on to say, وَالْفَاعِلُ هُوَ الَّذِي فَعَلَ الْفِعْلِ. The fa'il, he is the one that فَعَلَ الْفِعْلِ. He done the action. All right? And I think that's really, that's quite basic for us. وَالْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ هُوَ الَّذِي وَقَعَ عَلَيْهِ فِعْلَ الْفَاعِلِ. The object of the sentence, he is the one or she is the one or it is the thing that the action done by the one doing the verb was done to that particular person. When I give you this example, inshallah ta'ala, it is going to be crystal clear. So if we look at this sentence right now, it says, ضَرَبَ زَيْدٌ خَالِدًا. ضَرَبَ زَيْدٌ خَالِدًا, which means Zayd hit Khalid. One more time. Zayd hit Khalid. That's how we say it in English. All right. Now we know that Zayd is the one who carried out the action of hitting merely because he ends in a dhamma. And that is a sign of a noun being in the state of rafa'. And that tells us that he is the one, i.e. Zayd, he is the one that did the action of hitting. Who did he hit? He hit Khalid. So if you have to ask who or what in a verbal sentence, the answer to who or the answer to what will give us the object. The answer to who or what will give us the object. For example, Zayd hit. The next question you're going to ask if somebody just went Zayd hit, who did Zayd hit or what did Zayd hit? Whatever the answer is to those two questions, that word is going to be mansoob. The sign of the noun being mansoob 9 times out of 10 is in fact the fatha, but there are things that may cause that fatha to change. All right, guys. By the way, it's Lu'ay. Are you following us so far, sister? You came in a little bit late, but let me know if you're still keeping up with what we're saying, inshallah ta'ala, because I would hate to know that you are, just quite lost. what we're speaking about. All right, Jade. If you do need any help, sister, please let me know, inshallah. طيب. So in this sentence, ضرب زيد محمد, it says فزيد, i.e. so the name Zayd, فاعل, is the doer of the verb. لأنه فعل الفعل ضرب, because he is the one that carried out the action of the verb ضرب. لأنه, because he فعل, he carried out الفعل, يعني the action of the فعل ضرب. وخالدا, this word here, وخالدا مفعول به is the object of the sentence. لماذا? Why? لأنه وقع عليه فعل الفاعل, because the action of the one that carried out the ضرب happened to Khalid. Happened to Khalid. And that is very, very, very important to understand. Please, guys, if there are any questions, because we've nearly finished this printout, please let me know, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. طيب. Last but not least, the fa'il, the subject, إما it should be said, إما أن يكون, sorry. I should say إما, my bad, guys, editing on the job. إما أن يكون اسما ظاهرا. When we're dealing with the subject or the doer, sorry, of a verbal sentence, the doer of a verbal sentence, the doer is either going to be a noun that is separate from any other word, like I'll put somebody's name, or here is going to be like خرج الطالب, the student left. الطالب is not a word that is connected to the previous word, it stands alone. So this is called an ism ظاهر. All right, ism ظاهر. I forget the technical meaning in English grammar, but nonetheless, you can see that the subject of the verbal sentence is clearly by itself. All right, and it comes after the verb. Hope that makes sense, guys. All right, now remember, we're speaking about the different ways the fa'il can present itself. And then it says, وَإِمَّا أَن يَكُونَ ضَمِيرَ رَفْعٍ مُتَّصِلٍ. It's either going to be a pronoun, right, that usually is in the raf' state. However, it's going to be in the, sorry, my bad. وَإِمَّا أَن يَكُونَ ضَمِيرَ رَفْعٍ مُتَّصِلٍ. The fa'il of a verbal sentence may present itself as a pronoun, which is what ضمير means. All right, guys? Once again, the pronoun in the sentence may present itself as one letter or a few letters if the pronoun is made up of more than one. In any case, this is the dhamir, the pronoun, which is muttasil. It's attached to the verb. When we say kharajtu, right, it means I left. Kharajtu, I left. So here you got the verb kharaja, then you've got the noun tu, which means ana. Kharajtu ana. All right? But this dhamir is in the position where the subject would usually go. And we said that the subject is going to be marfu. Sorry, the subject of my bad. Just lost my train of thought ever so slightly. The subject will always be in a state of rafa' all the time, as we learned slightly above a little while ago, guys. All right, and that's important to know. Here, the subject is presenting itself as a connected pronoun. The subject doesn't always have to present itself as an ism dhahir, a noun that is separate from the verb. Sometimes the subject can be attached to the verb. That's what I wanted to say. You said, doesn't dhahir mean clear? It can clear, apparent, they're kind of the same words when you're using it in the context of explanation. If something's dhahir, it's clear, it's apparent. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Guys, everybody else that's logged in, are you guys following me? Lu'ay, Aisha Farwa? So the subject in that example is the ta and the khabar is kharaja, la. Excellent. I'm really, really happy that you said that, sister. Remember, in this example here, there is no khabar. Why? there is no khabar, ukhti, because this is not a nominal sentence. Remember I said that the nominal sentence, this is unique to mubtada wa khabar. But with the verbal sentences, now we're speaking about al-fa'ilu wal-fa'ilu wal-maf'ulu bihi. These are the things that we're going to be looking out for. So try to link them as like trigger words. And anytime you hear nominal sentence, you're thinking about the mubtada, you're thinking about the khabar, you're thinking about the jar, the word, the majroor, you're looking at the dharf. All right? But the moment you come to verbal sentences, that's when you want to start thinking about al-fi'lu wal-fa'ilu wal-maf'ulun bihi. All right? And all of the other grammatical elements of the language. Anyway, so here we would say kharaja is a past tense verb, and then the tu is the dhamir muttasil for the speaker. Hope that makes sense, sister Aisha. Can the word kharajtu be considered a complete verbal sentence? Of course. Because remember, we mentioned when we was talking about the verbal sentences, akhi, we said that it comprises of two integral components, which is a fi'l and a fa'il. All right? Not all sentences can suffice with a fi'l and a fa'il. Some verbs require you to bring an object. All right? Some verbs don't. Like if I said, for example, kharajtu, I left. I don't have to say kharajtu min al-fasli, kharajtu min al-bayt. Kharaja, even kharaja, where's Muhammad? Kharaja, or kharaja Muhammadun. Complete sentence. The issue is now is if you had a word like to give. All right, to give. I gave. Let me give you a better example. Sorry, let me give you a better example. Saw, the verb saw, ra'a. All right. If I said ra'aytu, I saw, the first thing you're going to say is man ra'ayt or mada ra'ayt. Who did you see or what did you see? Sah? That's what you guys would say. Who did you see or what did you see? Now, the answer to who or what, as I just mentioned, is the object. Ra'aytu imaman, I saw an imam. Or ra'aytul imama, I saw the imam. Ra'aytu al-mudira, I saw the mudir, and stuff like that. So some verbs require an object, some verbs don't. Some verbs may require two objects, but we'll learn them as and when we go. But right now, what I want you to understand is that the fa'il, the subject, can present itself as an ism dhahir, or it could be a dhamir raf'in muttasil, as you can see here. Now the verb kharaju is the plural of he left, which means they left. And the actual fa'il in this sentence is the waw al-jama'ah. The waw al-jama'ah. Abdullah says, it just blows my mind that one word can be a complete sentence. It's very, very fascinating, akhi, but such is the Arabic language. And then the Shaykh goes on to say, وَكَذَلِكَ or كَذَلِكَ الْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ, and also the maf'ul, the object of the sentence. Remember, we just spoke about the fa'il first. And similarly, the object of the sentence, يكون اسما ظاهرا وضميرا. The object of the sentence, right, the thing that the action was done to, it could either be a clear noun or it could be a pronoun. So let's cast our eyes here. All right, for example, نحو قرأت الدرس, like this. قرأت الدرس, which means I read the lesson. Now here, I'm not interested in the fa'il because we already covered the fa'il up here. All right? خرجت. Here, قرأت, we're not interested in the fa'il. What we're interested in is the object of the sentence, guys. We're interested in the maf'ul of this sentence. So when we break it down, قرأت الدرس, the word الدرس is that thing which was read by me. Does that make sense, guys? الدرس is the object of the sentence. Why? Because it's the thing that was read. Now, if you go back up, I said that the maf'ulun bihi is always mansub. Always. So it's always going to be a state of nasb. Alhamdulillah, we can actually see the sign of it being in a state of nasb, and that is the fatha at the end of the word. And this is an ism that is ظاهر, يعني it's clear, it's separate from any other word. Now let's look at the same sorry, let me say that again. Now let's look at a ضمير, a pronoun occupying the same position as the lesson. All right, but it's going to present itself in a different way, and I'll explain why. Here it says فهمته, يعني فهمته. It is answering the question هل فهمت الدرس? هل فهمت الدرس? Have you understood the lesson? And the reply is فهمته, which means I understood it. Here, الدرس is referring to who, or who is referring to, shall I say, الدرس. All right. You might say, well, Ismail, you just told us that the maf'ulun bihi is always always going to end in a fatha, and that is true. But some words are, sorry, the maf'ulun bihi is always going to be Maysoor, and that is true. That is very true. But sometimes certain words or certain letters, they do not change the vowel sound to indicate their function in a sentence. So I don't want you to look at this letter here and see that it has a dhamma and say it's marfu', because it's not. It has a dhamma because the ma'ir, all pronouns are fixed. All right? And we cannot change this vowel sound to a fatha because the object always takes a fatha because of that same reason. Some pronouns are fixed. And that's what I wanted to drum home today. Fahimtu hu. This hu here is the maf'ulan bihi. Last but not least, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up after this because I'm really, really struggling to stay awake. It says, إذا تقدم الفعل, if the fi'l comes at the beginning of the sentence, وجب أن يكون مفردا, then it is an obligation grammatically that it has to be in the singular form. وإن كان الفعل المثنى أو جمع. Also, عفوا, إذا كان الفاعل المثنى أو جمع, meaning even if the one that's carrying out the action of the verb is in the dual or the plural, you must make taqdeem of the fi'l in the singular form if it's going to meet these criteria. All right, so let's check it out. It says, for example, خرج الطالب. خرج الطالب. What does that mean? خرج الطالب, guys? خرج الطالب. ما معنى خرج الطالب? Anybody still there? The student exited. Excellent. Very, very straightforward. The student exited. Now, if you look at the verb is in the singular form, and the fa'il is also in the singular form. There's no issues here. The second one as well, when you look at خرجت الطالبة, خرج الطالبة, what does that mean, guys? In fact, this one's quite easy, which means it means the same thing, but for a female student. But look here, the fa'il is singular mufrad. So even though we're speaking about a female, one female, we just keep the verb in exactly the same form, i.e. we add the ta at the end and we take the sukoon away because we have iltiqa as-saki name. Hope that makes sense, guys. But look at this one now. At-talibani refers to two students. At-talibani refers to two students. All right. Al-fa'ilu muthanna, the one that's carrying out the action of the verb, it is in the dual form, i.e. two things, two people. But look at this verb here. The verb is kharaja. And kharaja is usually used for the singular masculine. However, as it says here, if you bring the fi'l forward, i.e. as we brought these forward in red at the beginning of the sentence, then you must يكون مفردا, it must be in the singular state. All right, it must be in the singular state, even if the doer is dual or plural. So you can see kharaja, kharajat, kharaja, kharajat, kharaja, kharajat. One more time. Kharaja, kharajat, kharaja, kharajat, kharaja, kharajat. Just like that, guys. Here it's easy because the khabar is in the singular, the khabar is in singular feminine. But here now is where it gets tricky, right? You don't have to use the dual form of this verb kharaja in this case. If, however, this word was in front of kharaja, then you need to find out the dual version of kharaja. Guys, please let me know if this makes sense. Shouldn't it be kharajat instead of la? Kharajat, all right. Kharajat, if the next word after it, akhi, didn't start with alif and lam, all right? But because this starts with alif and lam, right, which is starting on a letter, right, that is a letter from the letters of the sun, we go straight from this ta, straight to the ta. We leave this in writing, but we omit it in pronunciation. All right, guys? So, kharajat al-talibatu, the female student left. Al-fa'ilu mufrad, the one that carries out the verb is in a singular. But here, this is where it gets interesting. The fa'il, the one that carries out the action, is in the muthanna. But it's still permissible to use the singular version of the verb if it starts the sentence. Again, al-talibatani, the subject of the verb is the dual form. All right, the dual form. Al-talibatani, two students. But if you put the verb at the beginning, either تقدم الفعل واجب أن يكون مفردا. If you do decide to put the verb at the beginning, then it must be singular at all times. Lastly, خرج الطلاب الفاعل الجمع. Here, خرج is a past tense verb and it's usually used for the singular masculine, but it's permissible to use this variation of the verb even if the mubtada is going to be more than one person. That's just how the language works and how it's accepted. Guys, last but not least, right? Here we've got at-talibatu, which we're speaking about 3 or more students, all right? 3 or more students. But it says kharajat at-talibatu fa'ilu jam'. The students, the female students left. Again here, because we brought the verb at the beginning of the sentence, it's okay to have it as the singular feminine. But the moment we say at-talibatu, you have to find out what the female version of this word is for 3 or more women. Please let me know if that makes sense. If kharaja comes at the beginning, I'm not too sure what yours answer the question you was answering there, Aisha. So how would we make use of the verb kharaja for the dual, if that makes sense? Well, simply, akhi, if this here was in front and this here was here, you would say at-talibani kharaja, and then the rest of the sentence. All right. Now, guys, with that being done, we have wrapped up all of the grammar rules for lesson number 5. If you don't mind, guys, I'm going to stop the lesson now because I don't want it to go too long. And next lesson, we're going to get into the book, lesson number 5, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully finish it. Guys, are there any questions before I wrap it up and call it a day?